Hurley, and this is Intro to Podcasting, the podcast. I have here with me some of our podcasters at BevCam. I have Oona Hansen, who is a co-host of On Air. I have Desiree McMahon, who is a producer of On Air. And I have Anthony Davis,
Hello.
Who is the producer and host of Footprints. Thank you all for joining me and learning some more about podcasting today. Welcome.
Glad to be here.
Glad to have you. So I first wanted to just ask you, who are you as a person? Tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do or where you go to school, and a fun fact about yourself.
My name is Oona. I'm the co-host of On Air, which is like a movie podcast. So I'm really into movies. The people I do it with are two of my closest friends, so that definitely helps. Just being able to sit on the panel, talk to them about something that I'm passionate about and that they're also passionate about is fun. I don't know a fun fact about me.
Hobbies?
I have a cat. Sure, that works.
Oh, you have a cat? What's your cat's name?
Archie.
Archie.
Yeah.
Nice. From the show. But I can't think of that name.
Technically,
Veronica,
Riverdale.
Yeah.
Riverdale, yeah.
Riverdale.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't read that, but he came with the name and we kept it.
It came with the name. Okay, that's pretty much what we've done for our shelter pets too.
Mm-hmm.
For
Why
sure.
strip them of their name that they've come to know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very fair. And Desiree, how about you?
Yeah, so I am the producer of On Air. It came about because I run a youth program where I teach kids that are in middle school and high school how to make their own films. And one things we talked about is we don't get to watch enough movies in the class. So I had run a podcast previously at another job with PBD Access, which was wonderful. And we had pitched it to the kids, and they really had a lot of cool ideas for it. So we started doing it, and I think they're just over 30 weeks in, which is crazy. Fun fact, I also have a cat. She's my brother's. She lives with me. And he found her in the wall of a church. Yeah, he had to cut her out of a wall. And she's really, really pretty, but she doesn't like me. I try really hard.
Oh, man, that's funny. Hello there. So my name's Anthony Davis. Call me Tony, please. I have a podcast called Footprints. It's a wonderful podcast. It has to do with meeting people every day, and they leave a footprint on us, good, bad, or indifferent, and how do we take those footprints and how do we carry them forward? Parents might leave one on you, your aunt, your uncle, whoever, someone in the grocery store you might have an encounter with. So it kind of encompasses everything. So I love to do it, and I film every week, every Tuesday from 3 to 3:30. I try to actually have that locked in because that's my only time because I'm a busy guy coaching basketball, and I have 7 children. That's a fun fact about me, 7 adult children. Ages 39, Caitlin's 39. Let's see, I got to think now. Jeanette is 35. Adrian is 32, my oldest son. My son Cameron is 30, who'll be getting married this year. We were supposed to talk about a destination wedding, but I don't think that's going to happen. And then, let's see, my son Austin is 29. My daughter Carrington is 25, and my youngest son Ashton is 19. So not the Brady Bunch, but it's pretty close to it. Yeah, pretty close to it.
Awesome, thank you. So as we all know, coming up with your actual podcast idea and title and developing that is the hardest part, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, what was your process? How did you decide on what your theme was going to be, and how did you come up with the titles?
Interesting. So for me, I'm a humanities teacher at Beverly High School, so I was able to kind of mesh the two. So I taught a leadership class, and in that leadership class, I gave a specific assignment, And from that assignment, I got some wonderful essays, and I'm reading the essays, and I'm seeing all the emotion poured out into the pages, and I'm like, this is really awesome. I'd love to be able to do this on a podcast. And I'm thinking, how can I do that? So I'm started kind of brainstorming what it was going to be. And coincidentally enough, Mr. Thomas sent around an email that BevCam was looking for folks who wanted to, teachers who wanted to really kind of get involved with them and just shoot some content or really kind of talk about, something. So I started thinking about it, and I came up with Footprints because it's interesting how every day in our walk of life we meet people and they just leave a footprint on us, and sometimes they're good, sometimes they're not so good, but what we do with those is really important, and so I try to bring that out in all my guests that I talk to. Like, I want to know who left a footprint on them and why they're doing what they're doing and carrying that forward.
Awesome. And either of you or both?
Thoughts?
I don't know. I was approached by Desiree asking if we would be interested in starting a podcast. So we just kind of all came together, brainstormed a bunch of ideas, and then she did the complicated stuff.
I have a background in like Photoshop and After Effects and editing, obviously, because of the class. And so I was like, if you guys come up with the ideas, I'll design whatever we need. And I think you came up with the name. It was based on like, we kept throwing out like different puns that have to do with movies and recording. And we came up together. And then one thing that I really love is you guys will do movies that are like really beautiful artsy films, and you'll do kids films, and you'll do everything in between. And I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
I've gotten a lot of comments on that, like how varied it is. It's really funny. Yeah.
It's hard because all of us have very different tastes when it comes to movies. So when we're trying to agree on things, it's hard. And then we'll bring in guests if they like the movies, so then we can get more people in. But it's interesting to see like clashing opinions on different genres of things.
Cool. What tools or resources have you used for planning and creating your podcast, whether it's an organizational tool or a source to get music or editing tool? What has been helpful for you?
Well, all the design was pretty much done in After Effects, except the logo that we actually did in Canva. We started just bringing in assets. I think I like altered it a little in Photoshop, but we have, there's 3 main hosts, which is Oona, Theo, and Michael. And we altered these little characters, which is like a soda cup and a popcorn guy, and like made them into these kids. And then everything else is hosted on Drive. So we have a folder on Drive that has all the assets that we have. So that way we can share it with Amanda, who does the editing, or if anyone else does anything on it. And then on Drive, we'll have a sheet that has like a tab for every week, and it will have the movie, the date of recording, a synopsis about the film, some fun facts that I put on for the kids, and some suggestions for if they get stuck, like, did you talk about what your favorite part was or your favorite actor in it? And then that's where we also add any like things for editing. So we'll have like, oh, we want at 2 minutes, we want this photo to pop up, and I'll link her to the photo. And then either Oona or the other host will do a write-up of what they want on the YouTube video, what the title is, and what they want is the description. And that's pretty much, I think, all we do. And then probably edit in Premiere.
It's a lot. You guys are very organized. Yes.
I try. That's a lot.
Yes, and I do use Final Cut to edit the episodes.
Oh, okay. That's nice.
And we also use Premiere here. So, and what did you use for the intro with the music and everything?
We had made a couple, and I can't remember. I think that one was from Motion Array, and they have like After Effects templates and things. So we kind of combined those. The song, I want to say, was from YouTube Audio.
From YouTube, yeah. I remember
cute.
looking through it, and none of us could decide on which one to pick.
So YouTube has a YouTube Audio library, which has all kinds of free assets of sound effects and music. So you can use it without having to attribute it anywhere. It just goes back to that. And then I altered the the motion array thing in After Effects, which is a super annoying app. I would not recommend it. I would absolutely recommend. We could pretty much do everything I did in After Effects, which took quite a while, in Canva in the most easiest, beautiful way. Canva is such an amazing online app. I highly recommend it.
Agreed.
Awesome.
How about you, Tony?
I'm sorry, I got lost in the story. What was the question again?
Tools or resources that you've used.
So some of the resources I use, I draw on my own experiences with some of my colleagues and administrators in the school. But I read a lot of newspapers. I read like books. I get inspiration from like different stories. Like for instance, like Shaq. I just finished reading his book. And, watching how he grew up as a military kid and having the expectations of being so big and athletic, what are you going to do with that? So that was like kind of, and obviously the footprint of his dad being a military guy was left on him. So he was able to take that and carry that forward and become what he is today. So I use that a lot. I look at stories in newspaper articles. I look at USA Today is one of my favorites to look at. They have a lot of different articles. Sometimes I look at the New York Times. We even have the Salem News we get at the high school, so I'll look at some of the articles there and see, just kind of get a pulse on what's going on in the world. And then that kind of guides me to who I'm going to have as a guest, because I kind of look and say, okay, well, gee, there's something happening on over here. Let me see if I have a colleague or a student or someone who actually can relate to that particular story in the newspaper. So that's kind of how I do the resource and do a little research for my next guest. And wait till you see what I got next week. It's going to be awesome.
That's funny. That was actually my next question, was how do you select your guests and how do you coordinate with them?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Do it like that.
Well, that's great. What about you guys? How do you organize your guests, or how do you choose your guests?
It depends on the movie we're doing usually, because sometimes we will like tell everyone what movie we're doing, and if someone's interested, they'll join, or we'll have someone in mind that we want to have as a guest, because like either they've never been on or they're interested in going on again, so then they'll pick a movie, or we'll pick something that we know they like.
And has every guest been a student of In Focus? Or any from school that were outside?
I don't think so. Not yet. Maybe in the future.
Oh.
So.
What about scheduling, getting people to come at the right date and time? And
Scheduling is definitely the hardest,
Yes.
because they have the after school program with me. I teach every day except Friday, and then they have to get the guest schedule. So we have a open standing Friday spot at 3:30ish. And yeah, we a little bit of hope and prayer to get people in and that works for them. But I would say the scheduling is a hard thing for sure.
what about you, Tony? Do you have a good system down, or?
No, not really. I mean, I'm working on it.
But you always have a guest.
But I do. So what I try to do is I try to reach out to them like a week before or so. Like I say, hey, I want to book the studio for this day. Are you available to come on to Footprints? And then generally speaking, it's like, so this past week I had Mrs. Barb Fecto, who was our resident librarian at BHS, and that was an interesting conversation, and that was only part one of our conversation. We're going to continue with part two shortly. But what I try to do is I try to look at my colleagues and ask them if they're available. Hey, listen, I would like you to come on the podcast. We're going to have a conversation. I had Mr. Coder on, who is an assistant principal. I had Erica Pasquarelli on before we actually came over here. A couple weeks ago, I had Mr. Bren on, who's a wellness teacher. So I try to vary the guests in that way where the topics are interesting. And then we just kind of talk a little bit about the footprints that were left on them as individuals and, you know, give them kind of, so as a teacher, you're like kind of like, I don't really know, Mr. So-and-so doesn't like this or that. But if you come on the podcast and you actually listen to them talk, it's like, oh, he has a dog like me, or, oh, he's married like me, or he has a sibling like me, or, do you know what I mean? They're human. And that was the whole point of the podcast as well, is to make them seem like, other than this authoritative figure in the school, I'm also this. Yeah. And that's one of the best parts of what I do. I feel like I'm trying to like sort of pull back the curtain, so to speak, a little bit, like the Wizard of Oz, right? Pull the curtain back a little bit. Hey, listen, they're not really this. They're also this. So that's kind of what I do, and I love doing that. So
I love it. Yeah, I feel like kids often forget that their teachers are just regular human beings that exist outside of school as well.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that's really important. And one thing I've noticed about both of you is most of your guests, I believe, are people that you already know. Am I correct in saying that?
Yes.
And I think that's one of the reasons for your early success. I think if you're just doing a podcast for the first time and you're newer at it, drawing from people in your circle, people that you already know are likely to be willing to do this.
Yes.
You're not going to get Beyonce on the first go,
No,
you know.
no.
You might have to work up to that.
Yeah, for sure.
But that's the way to go about it. It can be really hard to nail down people that you might not have a connection with, at least through somebody else.
Yeah,
So that's,
for sure.
that's important.
You always you already have that repertoire with them, so like the conversation flows easily and natural. Versus like if you do have a stranger, like unless you are just a wonderful interviewer and you're like used to pulling things like gently out of people, it is nice to have that like pre-existing relationship.
Oh, yeah.
Because it feels more natural.
That's
Without
a very
a doubt.
good point. Yeah. I've actually had people interview family members before and friends,
Yeah.
and you can really see like when they do that, like for earlier episodes, it brings it brings them down a little. Their energy is a lot more calm,
Yeah.
and it's a nice way to sort of jump into it.
Yeah.
So that's important.
Yeah.
Start with who you know. Start with what you know.
For sure.
Yes. I'm curious about what challenges have come up for your podcast and how you dealt with them as well.
It's funny. So for me, I was feeling under the weather, and so I was like, I had to cancel, which kind of bummed me out because I had the guests all lined up, and I knew what I was going to say and how we were going to jump into it. So I mean that's challenging. Just like when you have to reschedule, or maybe their schedule doesn't line with yours, and they're like, well, do you have another day you can do it? I'm like, well, no, this is the time that I have set aside that I can book the studio. Unfortunately, you have to adhere to this. So that's some of the challenges I run into, where scheduling conflict is kind of tough. But other than that, I mean, it's been pretty straightforward. If I ask someone to come on, they're usually like, oh, let me check it out. And so what's nice for me is we have this thing at our school called the Daily Dose, and they post every episode of Footprints in the Daily Dose, so kids get to see it. So I had like a freshman on, Mallory Callis, on like about a month ago, and it's funny, like now she's like a celebrity in school because she's been on the podcast, and everybody saw her and they're like, oh, I can't believe you went on and talked to Mr. Davis, and they rib her about it, but she's like a real good sport, and now they're like, oh, how do I get on? So that's kind of what I like to do, is like dangle a little carrot out there, like, and that's why my guests are varied. You know what I mean? They may be a freshman, they may be a senior, they could be my colleague, it could be an administrator, it could be anybody that's in the school that I'm drawing off of. And she's right, like, if you know them already, it's organically, the conversation happens when you ask them questions, which I really like, because you get certain things from them that you wouldn't get from them when you were actually working with them. So that's the beauty of podcasting, I think, and all of it. It's glory.
That's so true. That was my next question also, was how do you get that audience engagement? So that's really smart. And you're not only getting engagement, but you're honing in on your target audience, which is very specific, which is students, teachers, and administrators of Beverly High School.
Right.
So the Daily Dose is like that daily, here's what's happening today kind of thing that administrator sends out every day. And students look at it, teachers look at it, and Footprints is just right there.
It's right there, yeah.
You know,
it's a beautiful thing.
Exactly. So that's really smart. Any other ways of getting either audience engagement or growing your audience? Or are you still figuring that out?
And definitely we're still figuring that out.
Yeah.
When we launched, we did share it with like the Cabot like newsletter and things like that, and through BevCam, and we posted about it on the Cabot page because you know all students of the Cabot. but yeah, it's very interesting to see our views. We were talking about this the other day. Our views varying. Like we average like it's 50 usually, about 50 views an episode, and then we have like a random episode that's like 600 views, and we're like, what did we do in this episode that like caught attention? Like it's very interesting. Yeah.
I found that interesting too. It could be like the movie that you picked, or
maybe
something was trending. Who knows?
Yeah, it was just very random. And then another episode that has like 300. And we're like, what happened in these 2 episodes? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I noticed some comments too on your YouTube page, some of the videos. Are those friends of yours mostly? Do you know?
Some of those might be me.
Some of those are you.
I don't know. I've left comments on a couple of the ones that I wasn't on. I don't know.
That's hilarious.
It's funny.
What do you enjoy most about podcasting, and specifically your podcast? Whoever would like to go.
Well, for me, it's kind of bringing out the different human aspects of my guests, and kind of revealing who they are as an individual, as opposed to, my dad always said, you have to so people get up every day and they go to jobs. They hate their jobs, right? They hate what they do. And they have to go do it, right? And my dad always said you should get a career or profession that you get to do, because there's a difference between have to and get to. So for me, I get up every day and I'm like, oh man, I get to really influence students today, and I get to be part of their journey, and hopefully they'll come back to the school and be like, you know what, I had this guy or this teacher and he was awesome. And so that's, to me, that's the best part of it is the actual guests and the people, and influencing those folks who when they come on the show, like now they have a story to tell, right? And I'm telling their story, and now everybody knows, all right, this is who I am and this is what I've done, and now they can see themselves in that person. And that's the whole point of Footprints. Is like, wait a minute, someone left a footprint on me and I didn't think about it, right? But now, as I carry it forward, now I see what influenced me, what made me do that. So that's one of the biggest kicks I get out of it anyway, is being able to do that and having that move forward.
It's such a beautiful concept.
Yeah.
It's
thank you.
wonderful.
Thank you.
I think as a producer, I'm mostly watching and organizing. But the big thing is to get to see the kids really take like a leadership position and like step up and really like get their voice out there. I love seeing their inside jokes and stuff. Is really funny. But when they get into like the details of the film and like really connect with the pieces of it they like, it's just so great. And it also makes me feel like they're listening in the class. So that's really fun. But yeah, just seeing them just have a good time while they talk about something they love is amazing.
I'm very sorry. I was listening to them. What was the question?
That's okay. But what do you enjoy most about podcasting, or your podcast specifically?
I think getting to be able to like come together with people that are interested in the same thing that you are is fun. Like talking about something that we all have knowledge about, and also like because there's so many different like tastes in movies that we watch, it's cool to be able to see movies that I know for sure I otherwise would have not watched. And even if I didn't like them, it's like, it's good I tried it. Like, nice to have seen it. I'm not going to watch it again, but just like being able to have different people suggest things that I wouldn't have seen otherwise, I think is interesting.
That's really cool.
It is cool.
Do you have a favorite episode that you've done?
It might be just because it's one of the first ones, but I still really like Scream.
Yes.
It was
great.
It was just kind of us like goofing around and laughing the whole time. But
I like anyone where you guys brought in like costumes. Is so much fun, especially when they're like just poorly made, like silly versions of the costume is a lot of fun.
What do you mean poorly made?
For sure.
I mean,
always so high
quickly
quality.
made.
There was that one episode where, I forget what movie it was, you were wearing a mask and you were just kind of like not saysaying anything when someone asked you a question.
That was Halloween, I think.
Yeah. Oh, that makes
Yeah.
sense.
And you were just being very ominous.
I love
That
it.
was really
Yeah,
fun.
that was good. What about you, Tony? Do you have a favorite?
I had two actually. So my when we shot at the other studio, I had Brandon Souza and Mr. Stancher, which you showed us a short clip of. that was fun because we're birds of a feather. We're history teachers. So being able to have a common goal with those guys and then sitting down and talking to them, finding out Mr. Stanchel is like, has 5 brothers, and finding out that, Brandon Souza, when his dorm was like a castle when he went to school, like, and then he went to like Europe, and he like said, oh, the French people are not what people think. And so being able to find that stuff out on that episode was really, really fun for me. Because it's something I didn't know about them. And then I ended up doing that. So that was one. And then the other one I just recently shot with Mr. Bren was one of my favorites as well. We laughed a lot because we talked a lot about empathy and putting yourself in other people's places and he related a bunch of different stories because he's a teacher or a wellness teacher who's always doing the same thing. He's coaching and guiding, and kids are overcoming adversity, and so he's doing that on a daily basis. And I love the fact that him and I are like birds of a feather, where I might be doing it in the classroom, but he's also doing it in the field house at Beverly High School. So I love the fact that we're both have that common ground. So those are my 2 favorite episodes, I would say, that I've shot so far.
Yeah, those are great episodes.
Yeah, those are good ones, yeah.
Well, before I give you guys your final question, I just wanted to put it out there. If anyone in the audience has a question, we'd be happy to answer it. Yes?
Oona.
I'll repeat that just for the sake of the microphone.
Okay, yeah.
So were you nervous to get started with your podcast?
It was definitely, I have experience being on camera, obviously being in like a film program, so it was not as bad as it could have been. And I think the fact that I had people that I know so well, like, there with me, we were all in the same boat, so it like eased the stress a bit.
Mm-hmm.
I think for sure the planning part was kind of stressful at first. I don't know, it was, I think just having people, like you guys were saying, having people there to like talk to, bounce ideas off of, definitely makes it a lot easier. But I think the idea that it was going out to like so many people, and then my parents were kept saying like, oh, we're gonna send this to so many family members. I'm like, I don't want that.
Oh, no.
No thanks. But yeah, and we've done like, is it 34?
I think so, yeah.
34 episodes. So now it's like we've gotten used to it. I at least for myself, I can't speak for anyone else on it. I'm not usually nervous when I go on anymore. Unless it's like a movie that I didn't understand, but
That's fair. You gotta love the proud parents. They mean so well.
Yes, they do.
They just can't help but share anything and everything
That's
that you
right.
do.
yeah.
Does anyone else have a question? The audience? Yes.
I tend to do a little deep.
Oh, how much do you think fillers matter? Like saying like or anything?
I really don't think it matters that
Yeah.
much, to be honest, because
Agreed.
it's conversation and it's your personality. So you don't want to put on, because people can see right through that if you're kind of trying to be something you're really not. So if you say and like and all of that, which I do in my podcast too, it's fine. It's absolutely fine. I mean, it's just how we talk. It's just, that's you. That's just so embrace that part of it. You know what I mean? Don't worry about it. And I'll say this too about being nervous on camera. For me, I was never nervous on camera, because once I knew what I wanted to say and what I wanted to ask. It's almost like, I'm a teacher, so I study a lot. So I kind of already knew, all right, this is the direction of the conversation I wanted to go in. But sometimes you'll ask a question and organically it goes off into a tangent. So you just kind of go with it. And so I've never been like nervous on camera or anything like that. Or, I just kind of, after you get going, I mean, once you're into the content and you're having the conversation, you forget all about the cameras. You're just into the conversation and you listen to the other person and how they're giving the responses to you. So it's, for me, I've never had that issue. I've been okay with it. I mean, obviously, everybody gets nervous, but for me, this is like old hat. I feel pretty good. And I haven't done like as many episodes as they've done. I've probably done half the episodes, but once you get into a rhythm with what you're doing and how you're doing it, I think everything else falls into place and you're not nervous about it. So that's at least it was for me anyway.
That's so true. And I'll add it's a very different vibe than like a sit down interview in a TV studio where you're interviewing the mayor and you're both wearing suits. And like this is like you can wear a sweatshirt, it's a casual hang. So there's a lot of forgiveness there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think verbal fillers are part of your personality as well. And like, I'm definitely a podcast girl. Like, I listen to podcasts instead of like music in the car. And some of my favorite are the least polished ones where their personality is so apparent. And that's why I watch. And I'm like, oh yeah, like I don't know if I really care about the subject they're talking about today, but their personality is so much fun that you just like get caught up in like, you're like, now I care about this drama they're talking about.
Yes. Or they're like kind of like talking over each other. And it's not really like an interview style thing. It's just like, like even just one person by themselves. And like I watch a guy and like all the time he'll be like, what's that word? Oh yeah. Okay, I'm dumb. This is it. And you're like, that's the character. I like that. Like that's personality.
Exactly.
That's relatable. Any other questions? Yeah. I have not had, but there definitely is. I know some of those hosting websites, they help you with figuring out monetization.
Yeah.
I do know you'd have to have some kind of a following to get going. Does anyone here know anything about monetization?
I only know a really small amount, but through like quick format things like Instagram, YouTube, as long as you're not using like copyrighted stuff, you can monetize with a very small amount of followers and like gain through. Okay. You just have to sign up through their app for monetization programs, and it just means it will run like commercials and things on your channel.
Oh, wow. Interesting. So I never really looked at it like that. Once I got into doing this, I didn't think like, this could be like, monetized or anything like that. But obviously with all the social media that we have now, you have so many outlets where everything can be seen. So yeah, I mean, I started thinking about it probably about a week ago, to be honest with you, since I've been doing, this is my 17th show coming up. So I feel like I would love to be able to get this out globally. Like not just locally, like because I feel like the message of Footprints, everybody can relate to it in terms of how they, their life is and what's going on in their life and who left a footprint on them and why they're doing what they're doing. So I feel like that, at some point I'll probably think about monetizing it, but I'm not at that point yet. I'm thinking about it, kind of writing down ideas and thinking like, oh, how can I get this ball really rolling? But yeah, I mean, it's definitely available and out there if you want to do it.
I wonder if it might be of interest to people for BevCam to host some kind of monetization workshop or seminar. Obviously, it wouldn't be taught by me. It's not in my wheelhouse, but we have a lot of connections out there, and I think that maybe that's something that will come up. Yeah. It seems to be. I think
absolutely. I think pairing that with like just social media education as well, like if you're posting on YouTube and you're monetizing, when you go on to Snapchat, Instagram, all the short form, like to clip the best part of your long form content and putting it on that to drive views back, and how to like maximize use of your RSS feed. I think people would love that.
I already have someone in mind who might
Beautiful.
be able to do that. Okay, I will think about that.
Awesome.
Anything else? That's it? All right. Well, my last question to you is, what is your advice to someone out there who's looking to start their own podcast?
I would say, just jump in, just try. I think when we were coming up with the idea, I had read a stat that it's like 98% of podcasts don't make it past 10 episodes. Wow. So start a very small goal. Like, can I do 10? Can we get to 5? Like, can we do it with just us? Do we even need a podcast guest? Like, start really small and just have fun with it, because if you're having fun, the audience is having fun. If you feel genuine, the audience feels that genuineness. When you feel like you have to act or like present a certain way, that's where it feels inauthentic or too staged, and that, why plan all this extra stuff? Like, have a rough I outline, but don't overplan yourself. Don't overstress yourself and being like this perfect podcast host, because no one's really looking for that.
Yeah,
Great advice. Thank you.
that is good advice. What was that question again?
What advice would you give to someone looking to start a podcast?
So the advice I would give to anybody starting is like, make sure the subject matter that you do a little research and let it be like something that you really are passionate about. I think that is the most important aspect of anything you start. Especially, and well, that's what I've learned in my life, is like, you got to be passionate about it and then just drive it and then didn't see where it goes. Like, as you're getting involved in it, it kind of sometimes takes on a life of its own. So when you're doing that, you're just kind of riding the wave and seeing what happens with it. And as you put more energy and effort into it, it starts to grow and it becomes something that, you can actually like, it becomes part of you basically, which is my podcast now. It's really part of me. It's always how I was, had been grown up and taught, and my parents passed along those core values to me. And so now I'm able to use an outlet like the podcast to really kind of get my message out there through my guests. And finding out like, oh wow, they're similar to me. They've had somebody influence them as well, and how did that happen and why, and so that's what I would say. Like, get something that you're really passionate about, a subject matter, and let that just drive you. And then as you go through it, you'll see the process will start to become more easier and easier. At least it did for me. So each episode now is becoming a lot more easier. I ask some of the same questions, but I get a lot of different answers from those questions. And so that's one of the best parts of doing it, I think, for me anyway.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much, Oona and Desiree and Tony. Thank you for joining us tonight. And thank you to everyone watching. You're welcome.
Thank
you
you
so much.
Appreciate it.
This has been Intro to Podcasting, the podcast. Have a good night.
Bye.